President, and through you to the members, I too rise in opposition to this amendment, despite my respect for my friend from the Rocky Cape. I had the honor last week of giving an alumni speech at my alma mater, which was a very, very high honor. So I've been spending a lot of time thinking about, to prepare that speech, kind of what I thought my life would look like, right, when I was 22 years old, graduating from college, what my life would look like at 38, what my life would look like at 30, and I certainly never expected to be serving in this august body. I think I probably expected maybe to have a few other things, but I'm pretty sure at the time I expected that I would own a home. And yet, now 16 years later from graduation, 8 years into being a senator in this body, I have essentially sort of surrendered to the reality that at least where I live, where I've made my life in my hometown on the Outer Cape, I'm not going to be able to afford a home. And, you know, I'm not going to be able to afford a home at least until either I stop doing this and go get a much more lucrative job, or I get someone else in the picture who makes like a lot of money, like $250,000 kind of money or more, $300,000, you know, six-figure salary. And I'm going to spare you the sort of trials of my dating life, but I realize that it's not just kids from the Outer Cape who are having this realization. It's most young people in this state, especially people who are drawn to public service, to higher callings, to doing work that we all do. It's our staff. Talk to your staff, the people who make this place run. And you know what? They too are essentially surrendering to the fact that if they didn't buy a home in this state before the pandemic, they're probably out of luck. And we are so proud in this chamber of the efforts that we have taken under the leadership of the Senate President to increase the salaries of our staff, because we can be more competitive. But guess what? It ain't gonna cut it. Because the typical household in the Boston metro area makes about 1/3 of the income needed to afford the typical single-family home. So if you don't yet own a home, the rules of the game are fundamentally flipped on its head. For those of you who own a home, think about the factors that were there. Even if you bought at a time when interest rates were high, you've been able to refinance, you've been able to have that home as the cornerstone of the wealth that your family has been able to build. And so what we did with MBTA communities was both quite brilliant, but also rather modest and bipartisan in saying, hey, look, if you're a community that's benefiting from a state resource, you've just got to allow a little bit of land in your community to be multifamily zoning. And broadly, as my friend from Andover was saying, most of our communities are complying. We've had a little bit of sort of turbulence. But to take the foot off the gas now, when we have an out-migration crisis, and that out-migration crisis is between the ages of 26 and 35, this state attracts some of the most brilliant people around the world to come and study here and build a career here. And guess what? Why do they leave? Well, there's a lot of great things about this state. But when you don't have any real hope of being able to compete in a real estate market where you're going to lose out to the luxury investor, the second or third home buyer, the investor, the whoever, right? So MBTA communities, I mean, this is a good start. We need to do so much more. You know, this fundamentally is a supply problem. The Boston metro area has been authorizing about 30 new residential building permits per 1,000 people. If you compare that to Austin, Texas, they're doing 5 times that. So pause on MBTA communities. We need to step on the gas for MBTA communities. We need to do so much more for this issue. And I can tell you as a warning, I know where we're going on this issue because I'm living it. Come to Provincetown, come to Nantucket, come to Martha's Vineyard and see what happens when you have a real estate market where basically none of the year-round working people can afford to be there. And look, we're on an island, we're on a peninsula, but the fact that that's increasingly a reality for millennials and Gen Z who live right here, who work right here in this building, And speaking to history, I think it's important that we remember the history of how we got here, right? And a lot of this began in 1912 when this legislature passed the Tenement House Act. So the Tenement House Act was not land use zoning per se, but it was a local options for municipalities to ban popular style multifamily construction, right? That classic New England triple decker. What was this about? This was championed by a group called the Massachusetts Civic League, and its founder and main financial backer of the group was a person named Joseph Lee, who was a wealthy Boston philanthropist, who was a school committee member, and was an anti-immigrant crusader with a specific focus on Italians and on Jews. And this local option, right, only had to take effect, right, if voters at the town meeting would accept it. And so since the Tenement House Act, the way that we've gone about land use and zoning with local control has been more to do, I hate to say, about keeping people out than letting people in. And I think of the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston study, right, that we all know, where the average net worth of a black household in Greater Boston is $8, and the average net worth of a white household is $247,000. What's the difference? I can tell you what the difference is. It's housing, because black families and immigrant families and other families haven't been able to access the housing market, right? In part because of restrictive zoning and redlining and all this history. So we're doing a lot of good here with MBTA communities. We know that we've got a little turbulence here, but this is not only the right thing to do, but if we step back from this, I don't know how we're gonna rein in that, that wheel of outmigration that I've enjoyed watching my friend from the Rocky Cape spin tonight. But this really is about housing. I'm so encouraged and buoyed by the support that I feel among colleagues on this issue. I know I'm talking a bit on this issue, but this is the issue for this Commonwealth. And if we don't get this right, if we walk away from MBTA communities, if we take a pause, we're already so far behind. I fear we're not going to be able to catch up, and we're not going to be able to support all the wonderful good stuff that this state is about. And that the work that we've been working hard to advance. So, you know, if we can't do this, then we can't even begin to make a dent in what's needed. So I really respectfully urge my colleagues to vote against the amendment. Thank you.
President? Senator has not spoken yet. Senator DiDomenico.
Thank you, Mr. President.